You're listening to the audio tour of Eyes on Alamance, a group art show of 32 local Alamance County artists of various mediums, featured at Alamance Arts in the sister galleries. The exhibit is open from January 18th to March 27th, 2024. Through this exhibit, Alamance Arts is celebrating the creativity, sights, and stories of the people who live in Alamance County. Each piece incorporated in the Eyes on Alamance exhibit serves as a display of the breadth and wealth of creative thinking and community care that grows in Alamance County. Starting in the Patrick Gallery. The City Park Railway Station by Kathleen Gwinett. A favorite activity for children and adults in the city park was to ride the little railroad that travels through the park. I remember riding with my children, then grandchildren. The depot is where one catches the train. Spend some time at Elon University by George Siple. As a photographer, I love to stroll through the grounds of Elon University because I find the architecture and landscaping both engaging and stimulating. Muted, Shimmer, Autumn, and Dazzle by Randall Davis. Enjoying the natural beauty of our area is a massive inspiration for me. And sometimes I find motivation in the most mundane of things. Wonderful as travel is, finding something magical in your own backyard will never get old. Eve by Abigail Wilson. Community. So many people, including me, have moments when we feel so alone. When God created the earth, Genesis 1-2, the last thing he made was man. Adam was perfect and God walked with him in community. God said that all he had created was good. The first time he said, "It is not good," was because Adam was alone. So he created Eve to be his companion and to grow their own family. God knew it was not good for man to be alone. Community is so important. The people we surround ourselves with are so important. When COVID happened, almost all communities ceased to exist. It was so hard for me to cope, and I know it was for many others in Alamance County and the world. Eve is a reflection of that need in all of us, and that need is built into us. Not only do we need each other, but we need Christ. There is a God-shaped hole in each of our hearts, and we can try to find other things to fill it, but it is only God who can completely satisfy that need. The many different groups in Alamance, friends, church, and service groups helped me through the loneliness and pushed me towards God. But it was my relationship with God that ultimately pulled me through. The Ladder by Stephen Poliseno. I live in a farm area off of Stony Mountain Road. We have roosters all around us. It's not uncommon to have chickens and roosters as part of the soundscape of Alamance County. Sometimes the chickens lure other sounds that are more portentous. Once during the summer, when the windows were open, we heard the sound of a rooster and then, quickly after that, the shriek of a crying baby. Deeply concerned, I checked in with the neighbors. They were fine, but a rooster was not. A coyote, turns out, can sometimes sound exactly like a baby crying. So, my dog Haas is painted there to protect the chickens. Cedarock Park by Kathleen Gwinett. Cedarock Park, situated in southern Alamance, is a beautiful place to visit. There is an old farm where children can view the animals up close. Great trails to a beautiful waterfall where I have often painted. Today, it is a center location for the sport disc golf. Tournaments are held with participants from around the globe. Magnolia, Hummingbird, Dragonfly over Palmer Amaranth, and Indigo Bunting over Sunflower by Mio. I love the diversity of wildlife that surrounds my home in Graham, North Carolina, which has inspired my artistic side and inspired me to create beautiful photographs. Alamance County has shown me all the beauty of wildlife and how much people around take good care of it. All these photos were taken in my backyard in Graham. My pond is one of my favorite areas for relaxing, also admiring all the wildlife Alamance has to offer me. I grew up in Puerto Rico. I moved to Graham, North Carolina 4 years ago. I came to visit, and I loved it, and it has been my home for 4 years, which has inspired me in my artistic side. Tree Hugger by Keith O'Leary. Treehouse in the Park. What a nice park Burlington Arboretum at Willowbrook is. Nestled in a quiet neighborhood off Church Street near downtown Burlington, it has so much to offer. Its winding concrete walking path is decorated throughout with various flora, trees, birdhouses, benches, and bridges. There is a unique playground for the kids, a gazebo, shelter with picnic tables, and public restrooms. It also includes a veterans memorial, a restored spring, and this well-built treehouse, accessible via a suspension bridge. Willowbrook Park Sculpture Exhibit by Kathleen Gwinett. Willowbrook Park, Alamance Arts' Sculpture in the Park, was a biannual exhibit by sculptors from across the state of North Carolina during the early 2000s. Musicians entertained the patrons in the 2-day event. I was fortunate to have been able to bring a lawn chair and do some painting on the scene. Looking West by Gayle. The first time I rode out through central Alamance County, I was surprised to see the Cane Creek Mountains off in the distance. What a wonderful view rising above the relatively flat surrounding agricultural countryside. Side note, later I discovered that my family is somewhat tied to the area, as my dad's first cousin, William Hardy, wrote the play Sword of Peace, performed for many years in Snow Camp. Bud by Stephen Poliseno. We have hundreds of Canadian geese on Lake Kamek near where we live. Aerial View 1 and Aerial View 2 by Frank Lane. The Haw River trails are in themselves natural works of beauty, so it's no wonder that in my mind's eye I see the aerial views of the trails as brilliant abstract works of art to be appreciated and preserved by all of Alamance. River Turtle by Frank Lane. The Haw River Trail conservation efforts help to improve water quality and create habitat for the river's plants and wildlife of Alamance. So it's not an uncommon sight to see groups of turtles lazing in the sun or enjoying a cool swim in the river. Sweps to Sax by Gayle. The title comes from a kayaking reference to the stretch of Haw River between Swepsonville and Saxapahaw. I love history and can't help but think of the long story of the Haw River when I hike her, as a method of transportation and settlement, the operation of mills during Alamance's textile era, or in the present, where she is a source of beauty and recreation. I also marvel at her resilience and am thankful for the conservation projects that have kept her going and now healthy again, long after industry took its toll. Best Friends by Stephen Poliseno. I live on Lake Kamek in northern Alamance. Pictured are my grandson and his dog fishing at my house. Dr. Algie C. Gatewood, President of Alamance Community College from 2013 to 2023. Painting by Sandy Scott, titled Distinguished President. Throughout Dr. Gatewood's tenure at Alamance Community College, his efforts extended to fundraising and transforming Alamance Community College into a 21st century hub with modern, up-to-date facilities and programs, making it one of the leading community colleges in the USA. Some of his accomplishments are passing the largest bond measures, $39.6 million, in the history of the college, acquiring $20 million to build the new Advanced Applied Technology, $19.4 million for the Biotechnology Center of Excellence, $6.7 million for Student Services Building, and $21.3 million for the Regional Public Service Training Center. 6 major multi-million facility expansions and upgrades, Student Commons Cafe, the first of its kind emergency medical services simulation, animal science and horticulture, state-of-the-art print shop, and a culinary arts program, $6.8 million. Starting the college's first early college, in partnership with Alamance Burlington School System, enrolling 1,563 students as of today. Founding ACC Promise, a program to afford last-dollar scholarships to students who have unmet financial needs. Spearheading the development of the Medical Bridge program, implementing programs for special student support and enhancement to increase student progression, retention, and graduation. Completion of programs in education, Alamance Juvenile Opportunity Bridge, and minority males in medicine. Developing a 90-plus acre farm for horticulture technology program, and $21.3 million for a regional public safety program. Establishing a 23 transfer articulation agreement that ensures a seamless transition for ACC students to a four-year institution. Added 19 new curriculum programs for 2023. Saxapahaw Bridge by Frank Lane. For a bird's-eye view of the Haw River, simply walk, cycle, or drive over the Buddy Collins Memorial Bridge in Saxapahaw. Continue on until you reach the Haw River Trail to catch a glimpse of river plants and wildlife and rediscover all of the natural beauty that Alamance County has to offer. Skids by Linda Fowler. In 1958, my family moved to Burlington, a few blocks from Skids. We did not go out to eat often, but we did eat at Skids. I still think they have the best onion rings around, and I love their grilled chicken sandwich. My husband and I eat there often and are greeted by Lucy each time. When we take our grandchildren to putt-putt, we always top off the day with a trip to Skids. Zack's by Linda Fowler. My husband grew up a block from Main Street. One of his family's favorite places to eat was Zack's. In fact, my husband often rode his bike uptown to get a couple of Zack's dogs and chocolate milk. Members of our family who have moved away always include a trip to Zack's whenever they return to Burlington. McPherson's Hardware by Linda Fowler. I hate to see old buildings torn down, and I painted this picture in case that happens. McPherson's Hardware has been the home of many businesses over the years, and I hope it continues to do so. Textile Heritage Museum by Mary Archer. The Textile Heritage Museum highlights Alamance County's textile history and heritage, as well as the current textile industry. The museum was incorporated on May 10, 2002, and moved into the renovated mill office and company store building in 2004. As I walk around the museum, the looms and other artifacts of a bygone era bring to mind the dedication of men, women, and children weaving fabrics that made Alamance County famous for its Alamance plaids. My husband and I volunteered at the Textile Heritage Museum for 10 years. We enjoyed interacting with museum visitors, many of whom told stories of family members who worked in textile mills. It has given us a deep appreciation for Alamance County's amazing textile heritage. Glencoe Mill Village by Mary Archer. Glencoe Cotton Mill and Glencoe Mill Village were built by James Henry Holt in 1880. The mill started operation in 1882 and sold cotton fabric throughout the United States until the last bolt was produced in 1954. Beginning in 1997, homes in the village have been restored by families who are dedicated to the restoration and preservation of this beautiful historic village. I have been fascinated by Glencoe Mill Village homes because they give us a glimpse into the life of mill workers in the 1800s and early 1900s, and form an important part of Alamance County's amazing textile history. Glencoe Architecture by Kathleen Gwinett. Glencoe Village is found in northern Alamance. The Mills Village has been restored since my first visit about 45 years ago. At that time, I was amazed to find flowers growing among the uninhabited homes. I have often returned to paint the architecture. This is a recent rendition. When it chirps, hazard pay, matter revolts, wolf tickets, by Marc Kennedy. Alamance County and its down-to-earth nature is where I've spent most of my life. Working at many mills, factories, restaurants, and more, I've met many great people over my life. And I'm sure their sensibilities and the culture of Alamance County in general have influenced my voice very much. Since I take pictures myself and put them in these collages, locals might recognize some landmarks in there as well. Unfortunately, some of the old mills featured in my work have recently burned down. Springtime at Lake Kamek by Antje Schifflet. My view from my studio. I cannot get enough of this view, whatever the time of day or the season. This is Lake Kamek in the northern part of our county. It is peaceful, simple, and always feeding my soul. Dragonfly over Lotus Pod by Mio. I was sitting in the pond area when one of the dragonflies just stood over the lotus pod. I went to the house to bring my camera, hoping to have the opportunity to take the photo. Unfortunately, I was able to take this beautiful photo. Entwined Creek Clays by Coy Quakenbush. This wonderful swirling colored clay pot is made from clay gathered from the creek where we used to play when we were kids. 3 spots to gather the clay give a beautiful tricolor swirling surface when burnished to such a gorgeous shine. The shape is reminiscent of the Southwest designs I love so much. And with a surface that looks this good, there is absolutely no reason to add anything more to this pot. It is already perfect. Lay of the Land by Coy Quakenbush. This pot is the reflection of how nice the surrounding countryside is in connection with visiting my home and going to the creek. You may find rolling hills, shallow valleys, rivers, and roads. And of course, lots of creeks and rivers. As we grow in the population, so also we need to grow in our conservation of the areas in and around the communities and towns. This small pot represents so much more than what first meets the eye. The Iconic American South by Jim and Rita Duxbury. The sight and smell of the magnolia tree is iconic to the American South. Their shiny, broad leaves and large white flowers are easily recognizable as you travel the scenic roads of Alamance County, and as it even adorns the approach to Alamance Arts. For woodturners, the magnolia tree provides a very unusual and unexpected wood grain when one is lucky enough to get a piece of the precious wood. Notice the white wood and the wide grayish growth rings throughout. The graceful magnolia is a rare gem to have in our woodshop. The Demise of a Tree by Jim and Rita Duxbury. As Bradford pear trees dot the landscape of Alamance County, so too the many lighthouses dot our beautiful North Carolina coastline. The fascination with lighthouses throughout the world is difficult to explain. It may be the stories connected to the lives of lonely lighthouse keepers, the haunting tales of pirates and shipwrecks along our rocky coastlines, or the wonderful memories of spending the summer at the beach with family. Whatever it is, lighthouses have a mystic that continues to captivate the imagination. And just as a bounty was placed on the pirates that frequented our shores, a bounty has been placed on these invasive Bradford pear trees. Enjoy this wood, as it may slowly disappear from our landscape, just as the lonely lighthouse keeper has disappeared from our magnificent lighthouses. Peekaboo by Coy Quakenbush. This ceramic maze is made from clay dug from the banks of a small creek that runs behind my house and connects with the Haw River just below Saxapahaw Mill Village. This piece has a whimsical nature. It reminds me of when we were little and went to visit my grandma and granddad. We got to play in all his old buildings and chicken houses. You could crawl in through spaces in the brickwork and look up through knotholes in the floor. You could peep through holes in the old boards and spy on people outside. Plus, we were always finding little treasures on the ground under the buildings. At least, we thought they were treasures. This piece is hand-built using clay dug and processed from the same creek banks that I wandered along as a kid. Summer, Fall, Winter, and Spring by Duran Merrild. We are blessed in Alamance with a temperate climate and 4 distinct seasons. Each season showcasing its unique beauty, from the colorful leaves of autumn that slowly drift to the ground, to the eye-popping blooms that sprout up from the earth each spring. The change of seasons in Alamance County never ceases to amaze and delight. Spring by Duran Merrild. Cotton candy trees, spun sugar on a breeze, blossoms flutter like butterfly wings, floating over fields of emerald green. The sweet breath of spring, flowering like a psychedelic dream, and I just want to scream for joy. Spring Retreat by Cheryl Wilder. In the stillness of nature, leaves rattle, water cascades, animals scurry and sing. My mind settles into wonder. When I first moved here and wanted to attach to the place of Alamance County, I listened to the river and walked the abundance of beautiful landscapes. I didn't have to go far to hike in Cedarock Park, where I took the photo, on Cane Creek Mountain, or one of 9 trailheads along the Haw River. In the county's natural space, I retreat and reconnect. I feel at home. Magnolia by Mio. This magnolia was already crumbling, but I found the colors and texture beautiful. There is a magnolia tree in my backyard, next to my pond, which inspired me to take a photograph of the beautiful flower. A letter to Alamance County. I'm sorry it took me so long to write. So long to exit the highway that masked your rolling terrain, dairy farms, and Cane Creek Mountains. The Haw meaning more than economy and wildlife, but heart, your heart, the reason people knelt to rest on the river's bed. It took time to find my place in your fabric. I'm like the dog that circles its bed before settling down. And still, I saw how pain seeped through your history. But I need you to know, I also felt the love. What fragility to hold both truths and not know how to bring them forward. Into the light, into forgiveness. Nobody's perfect, but you and I are a lot alike. We know the least we can do is continue to sow. Red clay marks its territory on everything it touches. It's unforgiving, but holds tubers tight. My bearded irises never looked better. There is so much to learn. Your vigorous landscape, relentless in giving to its people's maturity. Your red dust is in my bones. I'm not of your land, but I give back to you with my own. Pear Bloom by Fabian Ramos-Jimenez. A series of fortunate life events brought me to the beautiful state of North Carolina in 2015 to start a new life in a new place I could call home. Much like in a book, each new chapter in North Carolina has brought me to a deeper understanding of who I am as an individual, a professional, a husband, and an artist. With each new flower blooming around my home in Burlington during the springtime, I am reminded of how I have blossomed into the well-rounded individual I am today. Positively Charming by Anna Peterson. The glow of a spring sunset casts warm tones on a dogwood blossom. It creates youthful memories, which reminds me of Mebin's logo, positively charming. A simple life in a small town full of good people. Breath of Life by Abigail Wilson. This piece is a representation of the creation of man based on Genesis in the Bible. I have lived in Alamance County all my life, so everything I do and everyone I know is here. My passion for art grew because of the teachers in our Alamance County school system. They allowed me to dream and to dare to be more. My faith grew in the churches here at Alamance County, where family and friends all gather to learn and worship our God, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. This painting is a reflection of all that I am, and all that man can be. God created us so specifically. Every part of our body and mind has a function intricately designed specifically for us. Each and every person in Alamance County has been created with a purpose, and for something much bigger than themselves. It's the community here in Alamance County that God has used to help me find my purpose. South Church Streetscape No. 1 by Amy Jo Hughes. It's kind of a statement on the history of the county. Stan's Plaza is somewhat prominent in the piece, and that, in fact, used to be Stan's farm stand. Because that whole area of South Church, heading toward University Drive, used to be farmland. As Burlington grew, it sprawled. Paradise paved, and parking lot installed. There are still moments of beauty inherent. On the other hand, the ominous clouds and the storm might be a warning against rampant consumerism to the detriment of nature. The county has changed and will continue doing so as long as humans live in it. And hopefully, we make good choices that are informed by the history of the area, lest we repeat the bad choices. Jackie Shelton Green by Sandy Scott. Who Will Be the Messenger of This Land? By Jackie Shelton Green. Who will be the messenger of this land? Count its veins. Speak through the veins. Translate the language of water. Navigate the heels of lineage. Who will carry this land in parcels, paper, linen, burlap? Who will weep when it bleeds and hardens, forgets to birth itself? Who will be the messenger of this land, wrapping its stories carefully in patois of Creole, Irish, Gullah, Twe, Tuscarora, stripping its trees for tea and pleasure? Who will help this land to remember its birthdays, baptisms, weddings, funerals, its rituals, denials, disappointments, and sacrifices? Who will be the messengers of this land, harvesting its truths, bearing unleavened bread, burying mutilated crops beneath its breasts? Who will remember to unbury the unborn seeds that arrived in captivity, shackled, folded, bent, layered in its bowels? We are their messengers, with singing hoes and dancing plows, with fingers that snap beans, arms that raise corn, feet that cover the dew falling from okra, beans, tomatoes. We are these messengers whose ears alone choose which spices, whose eyes alone name basil, nutmeg, fennel, ginger, cardamom, sassafras, whose tongues alone carry hemlock, bloodroot, valerian, damiana, St. John's wort, these roots that contain its pleasures, its languages, its secrets. We are the messengers, new messengers, arriving as mutations of ourselves. We are these messengers. Blue breath, red hands, singing a tree into dance. By Jackie Shelton Green. The poem, Who Will Be the Messenger of This Land, is a homage to the ancestral birthplace and birthrights of my paternal lineage who were enslaved on the Holt Plantation in Alamance County. It invites the rich vibrancy of the blue mud to speak and commune through the stewardship of fertile hands and hearts that envisioned a different future for those who came after them. Parking Sign by Sean Leahy. This is a fun photo of the parking sign on the public park taken at night. This sign was just calling to me to take its photo. Downtown Reflections by Anna Peterson. In its day, downtown Burlington was the place to be with its community shops created for railroad workers. Then came textile mills that put Burlington on the map. Today, downtown is being revitalized with community theater, shops, and restaurants, along with Pokémon Go. Who knew? This boy adventures through the alleyways of Burlington to catch Pokémon during the game's community event. Being among the buildings brought me back to classical architecture. Each building has its unique design compared to what we see most commonly in today's shopping centers. Sheep Grazing by Frank Lane. The conservation efforts of the Haw River Trail help to preserve farmland and rural landscape in Alamance. So don't be surprised if on your next hike you happen upon grazing sheep eating clover, alfalfa, grass, and brush. What a delight! It's a scene right out of a Monet painting come to life. Balloon Fest at Cedarock by Keith O'Leary. Up, up, and away! This shot was taken at last year's Balloon Festival in Cedarock Park, the first balloon festival I have ever attended. This community event was sponsored by Alamance Parks to help support our local veterans. I really enjoyed watching and taking photos as the balloon was filled with hot air and lifted from the ground. Coming Around the Bend by Keith O'Leary. The toot-toot of the miniature train whistle is a familiar sound for returning visitors to Burlington City Park on the weekend. I still have fond memories riding this train with my wife and young son when we first moved to Alamance County back in 2002. The highlight of each loop is going under the tunnel as pictured here. CSA Soldier by Sean Leahy. This photograph is of the CSA soldier in front of the courthouse. I wanted to show the soldier in the dark with the light on the courthouse, a symbol of the dark past being overtaken by the light of the truth. Summer by Duran Merrill. Unforgiving summer heat shimmers before my squinting eyes. Like an undulating desert mirage, a distorted image of a world melting like a Dali clock. Beads of sweat slowly rolling down my crimson cheeks as I melt into the landscape of my mind, the stillness of a sultry summer day. Creeping Vine by Fabian Ramos-Jimenez. I enjoy summertime walks at the Burlington City Park with my husband. These creeping vines always greet me there and everywhere else I go in North Carolina. The way they intertwine with each other reminds me of the tight-knit sense of community I have found as a resident of Burlington. Summer Sunrise by Cheryl Wilder. I'm pulled to the earth. Shove a spade in red clay that holds water like a sponge and repels it with ease. I pull until roots free and plant wildflowers by the mailbox, no postage necessary. I drafted this poem in the first few weeks of the COVID-19 lockdown. Putting fingers in the soil nourished me during that time, which is common, but I find that red clay, the color of lava, love, and autumn, inspires me more than other soils I have tilled. The Piedmont is lush and rich with color, and this flower is the sun that rises not over the ocean or the mountain top, but from the many worlds found in an Alamance County garden. Oh, What Fun by Keith O'Leary. This is one of the eye-catching playground pieces at the Burlington Arboretum at Willowbrook in Burlington. Oh, what fun it is to hang out here and play with your kids. Saxapahaw Sunset Serenade by Anna Peterson. Those who visit Saxapahaw take in the trails and peaceful scenery of the Haw River. Wildlife can be seen all around, along with the acoustic sounds from a local guitarist. His music serenades over the river as the sun sets on a warm summer's night. Textile Bobbins by Barbara Clayton. When I was creating these textile bobbins, I wanted to try to preserve history in a unique way. These bobbins were created to show respect for the people who worked in textile mills. Being a resident and social worker with older adults in Alamance County, I have met many wonderful people who worked in this industry. These bobbins were created for them. I hope that it brings a smile to your face and warmth in your heart. Twisted Beauties by Jim and Rita Duxbury. A burl is always a surprise package on a tree. The grain of the wood is generally twisted, contorted, and deformed, producing what is called figure, as if the tree's cells went haywire and tied themselves into a knot. These beautiful pieces are all turned from a majestic maple tree that had naturally fallen on a northern Alamance farm. Ducklings, Hummingbird, Bird on a Branch, Bird with White Flowers, by Giannina Woods. Birds are one of my favorite inspirations for art. Living surrounded by nature in Mebane, North Carolina, has grown my appreciation for these amazing creatures. Bird watching is one of the many free activities we can enjoy in Alamance County year-long. Mudslide by Coy Quakenbush. Made from creek clay from the banks of the creek behind my house, with mica sheets added in for effect. The inspiration for this fluid piece comes from memories of my cousin and I looking for fish bait amongst the gnarly roots of the trees that grew down through the overhanging banks of the creek. Attempting to reach the water, the roots branched in all directions. You had to wiggle up in between them to search the creek bank for wormholes and fishing worms. And snakes, if you weren't careful. When that did happen, you hear about walking on water? Well, believe it, we were running on water. The clay for this sculpture comes from the same places we tried to find fish bait and not end up as snake bait. Local forest yields wearable art by Jim and Rita Duxbury. Because of the temperate climate and rich red soil, Alamance County is fortunate to have an excellent agricultural base and a wide variety of trees. The county was once the state leader in dairy production. However, with increasing real estate prices and a slump in milk prices, most dairy farms were sold and developed for real estate purposes. Our neighborhood is the result of that development. We were able to harvest some stately but common tulip poplar trees as land was cleared. This wearable full-size cowboy hat was turned from a 90-pound block of wet poplar. A Slice of History by Jim and Rita Duxbury. A mighty red oak tree once stood in front of the locally known historic Captain James White House, the Victorian two-story house, now the home of Alamance Arts. This home was built in 1873 by Edwin Michael Holt, a local cotton textile owner, for his daughter Emma Virginia Holt White and his new son-in-law, Captain James W. White of the Confederate Army. This sculpture was designed and created from a piece of that beautiful tree. Ancient Buildings by Coy Quakenbush. made by mud daubers using wet clay they harvest from the new earth areas around my home in southern Alamance County. As kids, we were always trying to find fun things to do. Sometimes it was not easy to do. At our creek, you could always find mud daubers in the muddy spots, rolling up their little balls of clay to carry back to their condominium building sites. We would try to follow them to their building site, but hardly ever did we actually follow the mud rolling bug to his home. His wings against our bare feet, all feet didn't stand a chance to accelerate that fast. Just look how elegant these curves and swirls are made. This dauber nest, as we used to call it, is beautifully designed and was a home to many babies. This piece is an actual dauber nest I found on a wall while moving some tarps around. Please take notice of the quality of their workmanship. Just brilliant. This piece was fired using an age-old wood firing method to about 1,200 degrees Fahrenheit to mature the clay. Fall by Duran Merrill. Lost in thought, in a woodland, under the cover of Herculean trees, my eyes slowly drift skyward as leaves blissfully rain down, gentle love taps softly sailing by, anointed kisses fluttering in the wind. Mother Earth performs a grand pirouette and curtsies to the sun, dressing my world into a blaze of color, a baptism of fire that is autumn. Fall Fabric by Cheryl Wilder. Textured and woven, weathered into window panes. The leaf looks back, walks forward, shows winter is coming, knows it's not the end. Alamance County's textile history is core to the area's identity. In getting to know and understand its importance, I started to see how people become woven into their environments. When I took this photo, I saw worn fabric as a window between past and present. I can't remember where I took it, but you can find leaves on any trail, street, or front porch, which is where the fabric of the county is too. Alamance in Autumn by Anna Peterson. Carpooling in the morning can be tedious without being fully caffeinated. That is until beautiful fall scenery comes into view. This picturesque pond, with its vibrant leaves and rolling fog, was photographed by the Woodlawn Middle School. As I photographed this eye-opening landscape, I would get honks from vehicles with friendly smiles and waves. Later, I learned that others have enjoyed the same breathtaking view. Turning Leaves by Fabian Ramos-Jimenez. The vivid colors in every Burlington tree give us one last magnificent display of energy. In autumn, as the trees prepare to endure winter's cold, the spirit of tenacity of the people in Burlington is reflected in each turning leaf. We grow, we mature, and we rest up before blooming again. Early Fall, Saxapahaw, Haw River, From the Haw River Bridge, Saxapahaw, and Dusk, Early Fall, Haw River in Saxapahaw, by Nearest Levy. Contemplating the Haw River. During COVID, I taught my students from Carborough's Frank Gallery youth art group outside. Our favorite spot was the Haw River at Saxapahaw in all its moods and colors. The 3 works in this exhibition capture the Haw River's fall clothing. And just as the Haw is Alamance County's main artery, that river became a vital force in my students' artistic development and a lifeline for us all in an otherwise dark period. Fall Reflections, Lake McIntosh, by Gayle Hardy. Fall Reflections, Lake McIntosh, by Gayle Hardy. The beautiful colors found at Lake McIntosh, and all the other wonderful local lakes, are an artist's palette just waiting to be put to paper. The people of Alamance County are fortunate to be able to enjoy Lake McIntosh from the trails or from the water itself. Hiking, fishing, or just standing by the water, there's nothing like a visit with Mother Nature to soothe the soul. Boundaries create peace, finding flow, love notes from the Haw River watershed. On the banks of the Haw all are welcomed, and The Elements Celebrate a New Day by Steckley Lee. As a child and young adult, the icy mountain rivers of western North Carolina were the places I felt most alive, most authentic and connected. The cold water opened my pores, allowing my body to breathe deeply. The moss-covered rocks created soft, warm places to lie in the sun and become lost in the sky. The smell of the thick forest and the sound of the water, always it came back to the water for me. I looked forward to returning to the river all school year long. My body would ache for it. When I finally made it back each July, I felt at home. Fast forward 25 years, 20 moves, a career that nearly killed me, becoming a wife, a mother, and a fatherless child. My heart was full, but my soul ached. I had to come back to North Carolina. My grandparents' mountain house was long gone, but my mom had settled into widowhood in a bungalow on a pond in Carborough, North Carolina. I brought the children to stay with her for the summer of 2018. This is when I came to know the Haw River and its watershed in Alamance County. I fell in love with her rocks, her trees, her herons and otters, the winding trails that welcomed everyone, children, dogs, and sometimes even chickens. I had come home. During the pandemic, I began making offerings to the water around me, all tributaries to the Haw River watershed. Tobacco, honey, rose petals. I walked beside the creeks and the river most mornings and found friends in the small cascades, giant boulders, and wide beech trees. At times I felt my father, the late photographer Bud Lee, walking with me, pointing out the light and the shadows and encouraging me to change my perspective so my photography would show what others might not see. I committed myself to protecting this land and photographing it, to share its abundant natural beauty with anyone who was willing to see it as kin, not a commodity. My children began attending the Hawbridge School on the banks of the Haw River in Saxapahaw in 2021. I thanked the river for creating such a beautiful space for them to learn and grow in community. I made offerings to her each season and found delight and pleasure in her daily changes. The photographs chosen for Eyes on Alamance were created during my conversations with the Haw and her watershed in Alamance County between 2020 and 2023. Some photographs became the basis of paintings that are now in private collections. My favorite hangs at the entrance to the Hawbridge School, upper school. During this time, I also became connected to the work of 7 Directions of Service, and have since used my art to support their efforts to protect the waters of Alamance County and beyond. 50% of all proceeds from the sale of my work from this show will go to support their work. Water is life. Winter by Duran Merrill. On a morning possessed in silent wonder, like a dream unfolding before me, my gaze falls upon towering trees intertwining into a delicate webbing of naked boughs and bare branches against a baby blue sky, as billowy puffs of clouds parade in a slow-motion procession, the wind blowing icy kisses across my face, spinning a beguiling prelude to a wintry tapestry, woven in frosty, incandescent light that glistens through the night. Melting Vacation by Stephen Poliseno. This is a farm near my house. We live near Lake Kamek. The barn doesn't actually say Chew Red Man, but I added it in there because the farm used to be all tobacco farms. Though many of us think about going to Florida, the snow is a special experience when it happens in Alamance County. Snowy Leaf by Fabian Ramos-Jimenez. Much like the imprint of this leaf in the winter's snow, people of Burlington leave an imprint on other people's lives. Our words, our actions, and our presence burrow into people's souls and determine what impact we will have in their lives. Let's do our best as people in Alamance County to be a source of warmth and comfort to all those living among us in this beautiful community. Altamaha Dam on the Haw River by Carolyn Langley. This photograph was taken in early January 2017. There was about a 3-week period that our area experienced a cold snap, where temperatures stayed in the teens at night and well below freezing during the day. The water flowing over most of the dam froze. The dam was once used to power the mill at Saxapahaw. It is currently still being used to produce hydroelectricity. The county has a small park and paddle access located at the base of the dam. Winter Light by Cheryl Wilder. I am not afraid of the dark. You are close, so I grasp your hand. As you reach for another, daisy-chained, we wrap the wounds of our past. As a newer resident, 6 years, Alamance County is teaching me the importance of connectivity. It is not my family, neighborhood, or city that is my community, but the whole county. The lights around the tree, taken near the Burlington downtown depot, remind me that we, each of us one light on a strand of lights, are stronger when we work together. Togetherness by Anna Peterson. Snow represents a day of fun and excitement, along with hot chocolate. For children, it's a day off from school. For my 2 boys, it is togetherness. We are North Carolinians who were aware of the Sandhills weather. When we first moved to Alamance County 9 years ago, we were amazed at the 10 degrees cooler weather, which we love. A bonus is snowfall. For the last few years, snow has been limited, but one year our backyard looked like a winter wonderland. Our neighbors gathered to watch the children play. There were even s'mores for those who wanted to venture from their home. It brought a community together. We didn't get that before we moved here. That is what we like most about Alamance County. The snow is now sparse, but the friendliness and kindness are not. Winter Berries by Gayle Hardy. This photo was shot one cold morning after walking in the Burlington Arboretum and Willowbrook Park neighborhood. The bright red berries, with their beautiful green foliage against a white wall, was such a welcome sight in the middle of a typical winter day. Home of Peace by Stephen Poliseno. I painted this years back when we had a snow in Alamance. I made this painting my Christmas card. The windmill is a piece of lost Alamance County history that I've added in. The deer is accurate, however. We have a deer feeder, and sometimes we have as many as 15 deer in attendance. Street in Burlington by Sean Leahy. This is a fun photo of a street in downtown Burlington. I just wanted to show the empty street as the light stood guard in the darkness. Zack's by Sean Leahy. It was just something that was calling to me as I was walking around town. I just like the empty store. The signs of the store are calling you to come in. May Memorial Library by Sean Leahy. This is a photo of the May Memorial Library at night. I wanted to catch the light from the inside of the library coming out into the dark. This represents the knowledge freely available inside being set free into the darkness. White Outlaw by Kate Ledoux. Listen to the artist here. I was born in Hammond, the largest city in Tangipahoa Parish, Southeast Louisiana. This distinction is important. Southeast Louisiana is a state unto itself, French-influenced, home to a unique dialect known as Louisiana French, by people who identify as Cajuns, Creoles, and Acadians. Hammond is about an hour from New Orleans, and my family and I took many day trips there, mostly for the food. No one is a cook in New Orleans. Everyone is a chef. When I was 14, my parents and I moved to Alamance County. I attended Eastern Alamance High School in Mebane, then UNCG. After living here all my adult life, I'm still surprised if someone mentions my lack of an accent, my French last name. As far as I'm concerned, I may say my O's like a Cajun, but I'm a Tar Heel at heart. I'm sure I passed by Confederate statues while growing up in Hammond. Camp Moore, near Kentwood, my mother's hometown, is the site of the largest Confederate training camp in Louisiana, and the only camp still open to the public. There's also the Robert E. Lee Monument, which once stood at the center of Lee Circle in New Orleans. Erected in 1884, it, along with the Jefferson Davis Monument completed in 1911, was removed in May of 2017. I saw these statues and buildings, but I don't remember them. They were a part of the landscape, no different than my school, the doctor's office, the drugstore, my own house. When I moved to North Carolina, there were more statues I passed by, more historical markers, cemeteries, streets named after Confederate heroes and antebellum government officials. In the roundabout of the Court Square in the middle of Graham, as I made my way to the library, the gas station, the interstate, I drove past a generic depiction of a Confederate soldier, a blank gray face I had to crane my neck to see, and most days did not. Then, after the Charlottesville car attack by a white supremacist in Virginia, I, along with a good portion of the country, started looking. That's when I discovered the existence of Wyatt Outlaw, a man who lived and died in North Carolina almost 200 years before I moved here. Wyatt Outlaw was born in 1820 on a date even he did not know. The son of a white Alamance County slave owner, he was sold to the Outlaws, a family of tobacco farmers on Jordan Creek in Graham. Outlaw enlisted in the Colored Cavalry in 1863 and was mustered out in 1866. That year, he founded the Loyal Republican League and was one of the trustees deeded the land for the first AME church in Alamance County. He was the first black man to serve as town commissioner and constable of Graham. Outlaw's home was at 224 North Main Street, the site of the present-day First Baptist Church of Graham, about 350 yards from the courthouse. On the night of February 26, 1870, Outlaw was dragged from that home while his mother and children looked on, beaten and hanged from a branch on an elm tree in what is now known as Sesquicentennial Park, a branch that pointed directly towards the courthouse. 44 years later, in 1914, the statue of the generic Confederate soldier was dedicated on that spot. The master of ceremonies, Jacob Long, was the founder of the Ku Klux Klan in Alamance County, and one of the men arrested and indicted in 1870 for being an accessory to the murder of Outlaw. After Governor Holden, who declared martial law in Alamance and Caswell counties in response to Outlaw's death, was impeached in 1871, all charges against the men were dropped. This visual poem is my small and meager way of looking up, of noticing, of remembering the past as it was and the future there could be in my adopted hometown. Visual poem by Kate Ledoux. Wyatt Outlaw, 1820 to February 26, 1870. Now it's the courthouse, just before night, when it's cool enough to walk and the moon waits to throw its echoed shine across everything. Did you know, once, long ago, before the courthouse, but not very, on a particular slope, under a particular tree, just before night, people hung a body that had been alive that morning. And did you know, even now, if you climb to the very top of the sky and look down, you can see the deep dark the people made, where blood dripped into the cool and pooled, and the roots of the trees twist in that same dirt, sparking streaks of red in every leaf. And did you know, when night leaves and day comes, all the people walk past the big gray statue placed on a particular slope under a particular tree where, long ago, but not very, a heart hung and not a word is said, not a thought spared? What do you think? Would you be forgiven for thinking it never happened at all? Now it's the courthouse, just before night, and overhead at the very top of the sky, God looks down. All the footprints of all the people splash a startling red. The Courthouse by Jake Campbell. Having recently moved to the Alamance area, I fell in love with the town of Graham. Everything from the ice cream store to the arcade down the street, it's picture perfect. The courthouse is what stands out tall and proud in town square, drawing attention, quite literally, and making a connection with me to this amazing area. I have made some of the best memories in towns like that of the Alamance area, but something about this area really has me looking forward to seeing and exploring more in the future. Broken by Barbara Young. The image shows a broken swing in a playground. The image is sharper on the fence in the foreground and a bit out of focus on the playground equipment. A swing is easy to fix, yet it hangs there, broken. Is Alamance County focused too much on maintaining fences? How do I get in to play? How do I get in to fix the swing? Dazzle Carousel by Mary Archer. The Burlington City Park Carousel is a Dazzle menagerie carousel built around 1906 to 1910 at the Dazzle Carousel Company in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The carousel was purchased by the city of Burlington in the summer of 1948. There are 46 hand-carved wooden animals, including 26 horses, 4 each of cats, ostriches, rabbits, and pigs, 1 each of a deer, giraffe, lion, and tiger, and 2 chariots. The carousel has been restored and repainted. It reopened in December 2022. This beautiful carousel reminds me of the carousel I enjoyed as a child when I visited my grandparents. My brother, sister, and I looked for our favorite horses when we rode on the carousel with our cousins each summer. As I took this photo in 2023, a young girl accompanied by her grandmother was riding a beautifully restored horse. She smiled and waved to me each time she came around the circle. It made me feel good to know that our famous Dazzle carousel will be enjoyed by children of all ages for many years to come. Burlington City Park Carousel by Kathleen Gwinett. This is the location for many activities for the people in Alamance County. The Dazzle-created animals in the Burlington Carousel have been restored about 3 times in the last 45 years. I helped repaint the animals with the Burlington Artists League members in the early 1980s. They were restored again years later when a new music organ was added. The carousel has recently been restored and moved to a new location in the park. Carousel at the Park by Keith O'Leary. Round and round she goes. The Dazzle Carousel at Burlington City Park is one of the many things that sets Burlington and Alamance County apart from many other places. The carousel's most recent restoration was completed in 2022 and is now sheltered by a new facility that can be opened or closed, allowing the carousel to operate year-round. Thank you for listening to the audio tour of Eyes on Alamance, an exhibit at Alamance Arts. And if you haven't visited the exhibit in person yet, we hope that you will. Please try out our interactive thread art piece by Asia Milak. This piece is a map of Alamance County where you can add your own perspective of Alamance County into the fabric of our community. Thank you to the 32 Alamance County artists who made this exhibit possible, and to you, the listener, for keeping art alive in Alamance County. We look forward to seeing you at Alamance Arts.